which makes reading, holding a book, or turning a page difficult or impossible. The content is copyrighted by the respective publishers. For more information, please visit us on the web at nfradioreading.org.
Hello, this is Laura, and for the next hour I'll be reading from the June 7th issue of the New York Times Style section on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. Mary Trump has more to talk about than her uncle. The president's niece is newly married and ready to open up about her life with Rhonda Kress. By Sadiba Hassan and Jesse McKinley. Rhonda Kress was not impressed the first time she had heard of Mary Trump. It was July 2020, and Ms. Trump, a psychologist and niece of the president, had just written a memoir, Too Much and Never Enough: How My Family Created the World's Most Dangerous Man, about her and the president's upbringing. I'm like, who is this? Another Trump coming out of the woodwork and trying to get her 15 minutes of fame, said Ms. Kress, a former Justice Department civil rights lawyer. But that opinion started to change when she happened upon an interview of Ms. Trump on ABC News, speaking, as she often has, in critical and clinical terms about her uncle. I remember coming away thinking, well, clearly I was wrong about her, Ms. Kress said in an interview earlier this year. Ms. Kress's course correction was just the first step in an unlikely romance. What began as a parasocial crush between a fan and an estranged presidential scoin evolved into a midlife relationship that neither expected. I've been alone for a very long time, said Ms. Trump, 61, the daughter of Fred Trump Jr., the president's older brother, who died after a battle with alcoholism in 1981. She had openly wondered why anybody would be interested in anything having to do with me. Indeed, Ms. Trump described herself again and again as a reserved celebrity living a lonely, anxious life. Her first marriage, to a woman, ended about 20 years ago, before same-sex marriage was legally recognized. She had not been closely involved with anyone since. She has a tight relationship with her daughter from that partnership, but was living an increasingly isolated existence, a situation exacerbated by her opposition to her uncle's policies and campaigns, including a steady stream of sharp criticism on Ms. Trump's Substack and her podcast. That opposition had frayed family relations, cost her longtime friends, and left her feeling, mentally, that she was at the end of her rope. That insecurity may surprise her followers, who know Ms. Trump as a fierce critic of Mr. Trump across liberal cable news, 3 books, and her YouTube channel, where she posts analysis and takedowns to more than 500,000 subscribers. The White House did not return requests for comment on Ms. Trump's remarks. In the past, the president has called his niece a mess, and a seldom-seen niece who knows little about me. Even before Too Much and Never Enough, Ms. Trump had a complicated relationship with President Trump, whom she blamed in part for abandoning her father, one of his 4 siblings, during his personal struggles. Still, they were once close enough that Mr. Trump asked Ms. Trump to write a book about him in the 1980s, though she said he later had her fired. As a gay woman, Ms. Trump has also criticized Mr. Trump's policies towards the LGBTQ community and expressed concern about conservative justices, appointed by the president, overturning same-sex marriage. But she also noted a deep ambivalence on her part of her family and the president about her homosexuality, saying, "Nobody was interested in that part of my life." Like Ms. Trump, Ms. Kress, 49, was trying to heal after recent relationships and after losing a brother and a mother. So when she found herself suddenly infatuated with a stranger, it came as a surprise. The interview marked another step in the couple's gradual public reveal, informed by their desire for privacy and fears of professional retribution for Ms. Kress, who left a Justice Department in May 2025, 4 months after Mr. Trump's inauguration. Ms. Trump, who has called her uncle very vindictive and is facing a $100 million lawsuit from him, said she hasn't seen the president since about April 2017. Now we communicate through our lawyers, she said, which is very Trump. The couple announced their October 2025 wedding in posts shared on their respective Substack accounts this year. Ms. Trump had been generally private about her romantic life, but her post was plain in its affection. Against all the odds, she wrote, I have found the perfect person for me. I wonder if she's a lesbian, Ms. Kress recalled thinking, after seeing Ms. Trump on the Rachel Maddow show. As her marriage to a woman ended in divorce in 2021, Ms. Kress said her life seemed somewhat stagnant. Raised on a rural farm in Madison County, Ohio, she was still working in Columbus as senior legal counsel for the state Medicaid department and longing for a fresh start. A diehard Democrat, she began attending political events and fundraisers for candidates she supported. She also started listening to Ms. Trump's podcast, watching her interviews, reading her Substack, and frequently commenting on her posts to agree with her critiques of the president. There were times when I thought, "You're commenting way too much," Ms. Kress said. At the time, I'm in my mid-40s and trying to leave Ohio and move to a new city and kind of start over again, she said. And I drew some inspiration from her story because she completely changed her life at age 55 when she wrote that book. The admiration was accompanied by another emotion too, she admitted. At some point, I noticed, Ms. Kress recalled, I also find her attractive. In December 2022, Ms. Kress traveled to New York to attend a holiday party for LPAC, a super PAC supporting LGBTQ women and non-binary candidates, held in Ms. Trump's apartment in Soho. Ms. Trump, a clinical psychologist who no longer practices, had joined the board in 2020 and recently moved from Long Island. Ms. Kress, who had donated to the group, bought a ticket and kept an eye out for Ms. Trump, despite convincing herself it was just a crush. I thought, but she would never be interested in me, Ms. Kress said. I'm from Ohio and grew up on a farm, and she's a native New Yorker. We have totally different backgrounds, totally different upbringings. And yet, when she saw Ms. Trump, it was like this feeling of being struck by lightning. They started chatting, and suddenly Ms. Trump realized that Ms. Kress was Rhonda from Substack, the frequent commenter. I also probably thought that she was 85 because that's the average age of my readers, Ms. Trump said jokingly. The conversation was easy. Chit-chat about music, their love for the musician Joan Armatrading, and family travel. The two did not exchange phone numbers. Ms. Kress went back to Columbus, and Ms. Trump went back to her solitary life. And strangely, the couple never would have gotten together had it not been for Donald Trump's re-election. By 2024, Ms. Kress had moved from Ohio to Washington and had finally landed her dream job at the Justice Department, working in disability rights. But as her career was falling into place, Ms. Trump was grappling with her uncle's victory over Kamala Harris. The two stayed in touch in a professional and political capacity, often through LPAC, while a series of near misses followed, with Ms. Kress attending events, hoping Ms. Trump might be there. But Ms. Trump did not leave her apartment often, instead working and withdrawing, a period she likened to having bad PTSD from the election result. On January 17, 2025, just 3 days before Mr. Trump was to take office again, Ms. Trump hopped on a plane to visit two friends in Scottsdale, Arizona. At the same time, Ms. Kress began to write Ms. Trump an email, where she shared her concerns about the changes in the uncertain times that were upon them. And then Ms. Kress confessed her feelings. She sent the email the morning of Inauguration Day. Initially, Ms. Trump was stunned that Ms. Kress, or anyone really, would want to get close to her. But about a week later, after encouragement from the two friends she was visiting, Ms. Trump called Ms. Kress. They spoke for 4 hours. After that call, they began talking for hours nearly every day. Before long, Ms. Trump had a realization. "We didn't speak this one day," she said. "I was so upset." It was then that she realized that their connection was deeper than friendship. The couple now live and work alongside their 2 cats and a dog, ordering in most nights. They make playful jabs at each other and exude the care and comfort of a long-time union, even though they only began dating last year. They both described their relationship as transformative, upending lives and arcs that both had seemingly resigned themselves to. Talking about their courtship, Ms. Trump said, is a welcome distraction from politics. "It's more fun," she said, "than talking about the end of the world." In March 2025, they saw each other for the first time after their relationship turned romantic in Washington, and they stopped in their tracks. "We both just got big smiles on our faces," Ms. Kress said. Ms. Trump proposed a month later, and on October 2nd, 2025, the couple were wed at Brooklyn Borough Hall. Later that month, they celebrated their union in Scottsdale with 31 guests, including Ms. Trump's daughter. They are, in some ways, opposites, a country girl and a city girl. But their common interests bond them: reading, the arts, and of course, their worries about their country. After the Trump administration offered government employees the option to resign, Ms. Kress left the Justice Department. She has since taken an entrepreneurial path with her own Substack, The Little Girl with a Big Voice, where she discusses human rights movements. And now they seem conscious of the lost time they spent before knowing each other. "I'm 60. We don't have 50 years together," Ms. Trump said. They work side by side in Soho, as Ms. Kress writes, and Ms. Trump continues to churn through her busy schedule, often talking about her uncle, though, unlike times past, he's no longer her favorite topic. "If there's one thing I can talk about forever," Ms. Trump said, "it's her." Happy 100th birthday, Marilyn Monroe. To honor her centennial, over 1,000 Marilyn Monroe fans came together to dress as the screen legend in Palm Springs, where her Hollywood career began. By Francesca Forqué. When Marilyn Monroe sang "I Want to Be Loved by You," she would never have expected that one day 1,037 people would gather beneath her giant statue in downtown Palm Springs to dress as her in celebration of her 100th birthday, as they did on Saturday, May 30th. In doing so, they set a Guinness World Record in the very place where her career began. Palm Springs, whose identity is inextricably linked with the star, likes to claim Marilyn Monroe, born Norma Jean Mortensen, and the feeling was mutual. "This was always her escape," said Mariah Pryor, a Palm Springs resident who was carrying a Marilyn-themed handbag she once rescued from a lost and found box. Not only do fans remain devoted to Monroe 100 years after her birth, but it seems as if each person carries a personal version of her. Gays and lesbians, trans people, straight men and women, retirees, teenagers, couples, families, big and small, single people, Palm Springs residents, visitors who drove for hours just to be here. A few even flew in. They all converged at the sculptor Seward Johnson's Forever Marilyn statue, depicting the film legend in her famous scene in The 7-Year Itch, 1955. Each of them dressed like her, wearing a blonde wig and white dress, items that were provided by Palm Springs Pride, the organizers of the citywide birthday party. Joshua John Miller is the grandson of Bruno Bernard, the pinup photographer known as Bernard of Hollywood, who famously introduced Marilyn Monroe to the talent agent Johnny Hyde at the Racquet Club in Palm Springs. Soon after, Monroe signed her first studio contract. It paid $125 a week, plus a $20 bonus, Miller said. The transformation from everyday Monroe fans into her lookalikes began long before the official Guinness World Record count. People arrived with Marilyn handbags, Marilyn necklaces, Marilyn earrings, Marilyn umbrellas, and, thanks to Shelley Michelle, a longtime Marilyn impersonator, body double, and founder of Billion Dollar Marilyn Lipstick, enough red lipstick to supply the entire city. "We knew there would be a lot of women and gays," said Jason Back, the business partner and husband of the celebrity hairstylist Ted Gibson, whose team is responsible for the sea of white wigs throughout the weekend. "But seeing all these straight couples fully commit has been really inspiring." "All the wigs here are the same," Gibson said. "Every transformation reveals a different Marilyn. After all, he has fitted at least 1,037 wigs over the course of 2 days." And yet, no one appeared to be celebrating the same Marilyn Monroe. I asked dozens of participants what Marilyn Monroe meant to them. They began by talking about the cinematic legend and ended up talking about themselves. Christina Darling, who performs as Marilyn Monroe every week at the Hyatt Palm Springs I Heart Drag Brunch, put it simply, "I always felt like I was her reincarnation." Richard Allegre, a Palm Springs stylist who wore a custom Marilyn Monroe-inspired outfit, said her influence could still be felt in the city's fashion, film, and cultural traditions. That said, Pryor, the local resident, surmised that Monroe was more introverted than people realize and would be stunned by all the adulation. Pryor recreated Monroe's subway great pose at the Some Like It shop photo station inside Marilyn Boutique 100, a pop-up boutique offering Marilyn costume necessities and memorabilia. Tracy Burwell celebrated by attending a Monroe-themed yoga class wearing a floral jumpsuit that belonged to her mother in the 1960s. She said the film icon had been a part of her life since childhood. "When I think of Marilyn, I don't usually feel sadness," she said. "I always feel happy." Monroe Rose, who came to the event from Mississippi, feels similarly. "She means the world to me," Rose said. "She helped me through so many dark times." Judging by the 1,037 blondes gathered beneath her statue, the Hollywood icon got exactly what she wanted: to be loved. Boop boop be doo. You are listening to a reading of articles and features from the New York Times Style section on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. Can these ads make you love AI? A campaign for ChatGPT relies on heartwarming retro vibes to sell a product that has become a source of concern for most Americans. By Stephen Kurutz. Artificial intelligence is going to cure cancer, solve life's mysteries, and liberate humankind from drudgery. But maybe, when all is said and done, it will give you just the right pasta recipe to impress someone you have a crush on. That seems to be the main message of an extensive advertising campaign for ChatGPT, the chatbot and virtual assistant developed by the company OpenAI. The campaign's 30-second commercials, created by the New York City creative agency Isle of Any, has a pronounced retro aesthetic, bringing to mind the days before everyone carried smartphones. Each ad emphasizes human beings and downplays the tech. In a TV spot titled Dish, A young woman taste tests a home-cooked meal prepared by a young man in his city apartment. As she takes the first bite, the expression on her face goes from neutral, perhaps even a little skeptical, to approving. Dish is steeped in references to the old analog world. The apartment is decorated with stacks of books, a little white gas stove that looks like a holdover from the 1950s, and a glowing mid-century modern light fixture. The song in the background, Fool, by the indie artist Perfume Genius, is a 2014 throwback to 1970s soul. While letters appear on screen, I need a recipe that says, "I like you, but I want to play it cool." This is the prompt the young man has fed into ChatGPT. The camera pulls back to reveal the old building's brick exterior. More text appears. It's the chatbot's reply, in the style of rolling film credits. Here's the move. Lemon garlic butter pasta with cherry tomatoes, it begins. After laying out the recipe, the bot comes through with the encouraging words of a coach or buddy. Above all, don't sweat it. You got this. The ads have arrived at a time when many people are grappling uneasily with artificial intelligence. In a poll conducted by NBC News, 57% of registered voters in the United States said they believed it would do more harm than good. A Pew Research survey found that about half of Americans believed that AI would worsen people's ability to think creatively and form meaningful relationships. Isle of Any, which has done work for the New York Times, has so far created 7 30-second commercials for ChatGPT. In addition, several billboards created by OpenAI's in-house team have appeared in Los Angeles, New York, and other large cities. The campaign started last fall and is still going. Each TV spot is meant to drop viewers into what feels like a movie scene, according to Lori Howell and Toby Trier Evans, the founders of Isle of Any. The commercials were shot on custom Kodak film stock, and the production design was the work of Florencia Martin, who helped create the look of the Oscar-winning film One Battle After Another. Our focus was to find a cinematic, emotional way to celebrate the positive, enabling powers that of ChatGPT, Howell and Trier Evans wrote in an email. We wanted this to work to speak to how ChatGPT is a tool that works with us, not for us. They added that no part of the campaign was created by AI. The ads feature young people exclusively. The casting was an attempt to target the young cohort of people who were beginning to use it in their everyday lives, Howell and Trier Evans said. Ken Goffman, a tech writer who goes by the moniker Are You Serious, spelt SIRIUS, seemed puzzled that the campaign did not try to convey the full power and potential of artificial intelligence. It's a very cautiously denatured version of what ChatGPT and other AIs are bringing to the world, he said. They seem to be reaching out particularly to dull young people. In many ad campaigns, the message is contrary to the product being sold. Insurance companies, which necessarily deal in car crashes and death, present a comic face to the world. Progressive goes heavy on the shenanigans of the character Flo and her pals, and Geico features a lovable lizard. Similarly, many commercials for prescription medications show people cavorting in idyllic settings, rather than the maladies that the drugs treat. In the ChatGPT ads, a revolutionary technology, one that could be the most dangerous invention in human history, as Sam Altman, the founder of OpenAI, has warned, is presented as a helpful digital pal. There's this scary cultural backdrop about this Frankenstein monster technology that's going to come and destroy us all, said Randall Rothenberg, a longtime marketing executive and writer and the former chief executive of the Interactive Advertising Bureau, a trade association. What's the best way to create comfort around that? It's to say, no, this is just an extension of you. It allows you to bring your full humanity out, to plan vacations with siblings. Rothenberg was referring to Trip, another retro-tinged ad in the ChatGPT campaign. It is focused on a Gen Z brother and sister who embark on a road trip in a Volvo 240 station wagon, a car that stopped being manufactured in 1993. The boxy vehicle recedes into a lush rural landscape to the strains of Brothers Love Traveling Salvation Show, a minor hit for Neil Diamond in 1969. The ChatGPT billboards are no less throwback. One shows a pair of young dudes who look like hipsters from a decade ago. They are sitting in front of a cluttered garage, apparently taking a break from their startup project. It's a restful image, suggesting that the world hasn't changed all that much since the 2017 publication of Attention is All You Need, the landmark scientific paper that introduced the fundamental architecture for most machine learning systems. That touch of comforting nostalgia is what makes the ads effective, in the view of Robert Cornish, the chief executive of Richter, a corporate consulting and communications firm. New technology often introduces confusion, said Cornish, who wrote a blog post in praise of the campaign, and confusion blocks sales and adoption. Rather than showing off the wizardry of ChatGPT, OpenAI has ripped the page out of the Steve Jobs playbook, Cornish added. He cited the successful Get a Mac campaign from the mid-2000s created for Apple by the ad agency TBWA worldwide. Those ads show two actors, one cool, one square, meant to personify the Mac and other PCs. They stand against a white background, discussing tech stuff in funny everyday terms. If you want something to be adopted, take it down to a third grade level, Cornish said. The ChatGPT ads help counter the fear around AI and make it safe for regular people. They need it to be relatable. The absence of authority figures in the campaign may send another signal, according to the political analyst and historian Thomas Frank. ChatGPT has definitely made parents redundant, Frank said in an email. In each installment of the series, we see young people alone in the world with ChatGPT guiding them along, always there for them, telling them how to study in college, how to exercise, how to cook, how to grow up, basically. It is the parent we all wish we had, who is omnicompetent and omnipresent, totally forgiving, totally understanding. AI executives have pitched the technology as a kind of superbrain, able to solve the naughtiest problems. In a 2024 blog post, Altman promised astounding triumphs that would soon become commonplace as a result of AI, including fixing the climate, establishing a space colony, and the discovery of all physics. Yet the ChatGPT ads cast AI as an improved search engine or virtual assistant. That apparently is the point, Rothenberg said. OpenAI's business model, like Google's, relies on selling ads. And in the nearly 3 years since Google unveiled its own AI assistant, Gemini, the companies have been locked in a battle for attention. The ChatGPT ad campaign, in other words, has arrived at what would be a crucial moment for OpenAI. Founded in 2015, the company is said to be preparing to go public even as it faces negative publicity. Recent news reports have described its profligate spending, missed revenue targets, and lagged position in the AI race. In April, The New Yorker published a 16,000-word investigative article detailing the power struggles within OpenAI and portraying Altman as a congenital liar. The company also has a powerful enemy in Elon Musk, who has sued unsuccessfully in an apparent effort to drive it out of business. Anthropic, the $900 billion company behind the AI model Claude, has taken an advertising route much different from OpenAI's. During the last Super Bowl broadcast, it ran a punchy commercial that showed a young man seeking an AI's counsel in how to improve his relationship with his mother. He grows suddenly disappointed when the chatbot's advice morphs into an ad for a dating site meant to match young men with older women. "Ads are coming to AI," goes the tagline, "but not to Claude." As OpenAI's market share has slipped in recent months, Anthropic has generated media buzz for its supposedly too powerful to release Claude Mythos system and its decision to file for its own initial public offering. If OpenAI proves unable to convert new users in droves, it may find itself becoming to AI what Netscape was to internet browsers or MySpace was to social media. That gets us back to the ad campaign, Rothenberg said. OpenAI created the market and is most in danger of losing the market it created. They're saying, "Hey, we're not scary. Come to us." You are listening to a reading of articles and features from the New York Times Style section on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. Wags love their crocheted, bedazzled NBA merch. Much of women's sports apparel is just modified from men's items, following a pink it and shrink it model. The Snyder sisters charted a more DIY course. By Alicia Haradasani Gupta. When Danielle Snyder's husband got her tickets to her first NBA game, she faced a relatable conundrum. She couldn't figure out what to wear. It was 2021, coronavirus cases were surging, and she was still getting used to San Francisco, where she had moved from New York, struggling to make friends and managing postpartum depression after giving birth to her first child. It was a very disorienting time, she said. There was a lot of loneliness. Her husband hoped that season tickets for the Golden State Warriors might help. But for Danielle, who has a keen eye for craftsmanship, she runs a jewelry brand with her sister Jody Snyder, regular merch with its standard team logos was simply not going to cut it. She chopped up one of her husband's old Warriors jerseys, stitched it to a plain white t-shirt in a patchwork fashion, and covered the number 30 on the front and back in crystals. It was a small creative project, but it brought me back to life, she said. It became a form of self-expression. Speaking over breakfast with her sister in the sun-dappled cafe of the Fifth Avenue Hotel in Manhattan, Danielle's recalled crafting several outfits that first season and consistently catching the notice of her fellow fans. "Every time I'd go, I was stopped by 5 to 10 people," Danielle said. "They'd be like, 'Where did you get that? That's so sick.' People soon began asking her if she could make them merch. Her DIY project would become the catalyst for a new business venture for the sisters, a creative sports merchandise brand called DanjoPro. Only 2 years in, the brand is sold at about half a dozen stadiums across the country and is worn by celebrities as well as a host of athletes' wives and girlfriends, or WAGs as they're sometimes called, including Ayesha Curry. The company taps into the underserved female consumer base with the $36 billion sports merchandise market. According to the payments company Klarna, women's sports merchandise is a $4 billion market, but 28% of female fans have reported they couldn't find styles that they liked. The merch store is very representative of the male customer, Jody said. There's just like 500 options for hoodies and t-shirts. But when it comes to women's products, the standard option is pink it and shrink it, she said. As coach Steve Kerr of the Warriors put it, the typical merch designed for women is ho-hum. DanjoPro just looks different, you know, said Kerr, whose wife and daughter wear the brand to Warriors games. It's like, oh, that's not the usual team gear that you buy at the stadium. Their offerings, which generally cost $200 to $400, go beyond standard t-shirts and hoodies and include chambray Oxford shirts with embroidered hand-drawn logos, quarter-zip pullovers, and cropped denim jackets with crocheted collars and bedazzled team names on the back. When the brand released its first licensed collection in 2024 at the Chase Center in San Francisco, it quickly sold out. At Madison Square Garden, where the New York Knicks are currently wrapping up a conference-topping season, Danjo Pro sales are up by 150% compared with last year, though they didn't share specific sales figures. In the last week, they shared that multiple Knicks and Spurs branded items sold out on their website, and last month, during the NBA semifinals, they sold out of their inventory of 800 satin bomber jackets on the online retailer Revolve. Their success is, in large part, great timing. It comes amid a broader fashion world love affair with athletes. Sports stars across leagues now grace magazine covers and front rows of fashion shows. Even their arrivals to games, known as the Tunnel Walk, have turned into a kind of runway to flaunt their off-court style. Simultaneously, there are growing numbers of female fans. One study by a women's sports-focused think tank recently estimated that 75% of women identify as fans of one or more sports, who represent a ballooning consumer base. The WAGs are also front and center in this convergence. Their meticulously styled courtside looks are drawing the kind of attention that the soccer WAGs of the 2000s era did, and many are creating their own fashion lines or adjacent businesses like Jordan Woods' handbags. Fashion and sports have become deeply interconnected because both are ultimately about identity, performance, and self-expression, said Zach Posen, the creative director of Gap Inc., who worked with Danielle and Jody on a limited Gap collaboration in 2024. Danjo Pro, he added, is carving out a unique place in that market. Almost 40% of Danjo's Pro sales come through Instagram direct messages, the favored channel for celebrities and WAGs, who were among the brand's earliest customers, to request one-off and customized pieces, which Danielle oversees at their atelier in San Francisco. Jody, who lives outside Jacksonville, Florida, handles retail and business strategy. Before the brand received its NBA license in 2024, the sisters didn't have permission to recreate team logos, so they instead repurposed some players' jerseys and merchandise for their spouses. "You were Rumpelstiltskinning it for a bit," Jody said to her sister. Nicole LeCobb, wife of the Warriors owner, Joe LeCobb, said that she approached Danielle in early 2023 to praise her custom jersey. "The next game she saw me, she had one made for me," said LeCobb, who is known for serving high glam looks at games. "If they can't see me in the 200s, then I'm not doing my job," she said, referring to the seats at the top of the arena. Danielle made LeCobb an embellished vintage Steph Curry jersey. She had cropped it, so it was kind of boxy on the top and didn't look masculine, LeCobb said. "I wore it with some high-waisted jeans and some sparkly shoes." For Christmas that year, LeCobb bought all the spouses and partners of Warriors players custom Danjo Pro looks, all made by hand by Danielle. Jordan Woods, who is engaged to Karl Anthony Towns of the Knicks, and Allie Brunson, who is married to the Knicks guard Jalen Brunson, have posted their Danjo Pro looks on Instagram. Brooke Shields and Leslie Jones have also been spotted wearing the brand courtside at Knicks games, as well as basketball players like Buddy Hield of the Atlanta Hawks and Curry of the Warriors. The sisters said they hope to bring their business model to other sports leagues like football and tennis. Because ultimately, Danielle added, clothing that expresses one's love for a team strikes an emotional chord with people in a way that just a regular beautiful garment does not. What are all those people waiting in line for? Cake in a cup. An $11 confection known as a dot cake has New Yorkers queuing up at 6 a.m. By Gabriella Gurnshan. The line starts as early as 6 a.m. and goes around the block. People wait for hours in the rain. Some of them cry when it doesn't work out. Online, millions tune in to videos for the pretty colors and distinct sounds. The frenzy is all for a few spoonfuls of dessert in a cup known as the dot cake, a simple confection topped with frosting and nonpareil sprinkles, exported from Long Island to Butterfield Market locations in New York. It tastes a lot like cake from a mix. People say it's just cake and sprinkles because it is just cake and sprinkles, said Alex Posner, 27, and owner of the Dot Cakes, a bakery in Roslyn, New York, who created the baked good and sells it to Butterfield. Simple as they are, over the last month, dot cakes have exploded into a social media phenomenon. They are customized dot cakes for life events like weddings, engagements, and bar mitzvahs, and for every Hallmark holiday. There are copycats from other bakeries and grocery stores. Already there are endless interpretations: dot cake ice cream, donuts, bagels, and even manicures. On a recent Friday afternoon at the Long Island Bakery, Jonathan Lease, 21, of Plainview, New York, and Jenna Velez, 21, of East Northport, New York, were in line with about 24 people. The pair had organized a day of TikTok tourism. They reminisced about viral foods of yore like unicorn frappuccinos from Starbucks and crumble cookies. "We used to wait on lines much longer than this," Lease said. Those who manage to acquire one are often eager to recreate what has become a dot cake cliché, running a spoon over the hard sprinkle-paved surface, oohing at the sound, then digging into the individually portioned desserts, which come in vanilla, chocolate, red velvet, vanilla chocolate chip, and funfetti flavors. They seem tailor-made for the TikTok era, with their tidy circle of colorful packed sprinkles and the teeth-cracking crunch that serves as a kind of ASMR. There's the nostalgic familiarity of a classic frosted cake, and if you'd rather not wait in line, it's easy enough to make at home, and perhaps more cost-effective. Dot cakes cost $8 a cup in Roslyn, $11 if you're in Manhattan. "It's a multi-sensory experience," said Alex Matthews, a food influencer and the director of marketing at Butterfield Market, the only retailer in the city that sells the dot cakes as products. She added, "That's what's taking it to the next level." Butterfield Market, an upscale grocer, often sells foods that are trendy or become internet sensations. Think $300 crown melons from Japan, or their beloved soft-serve frozen yogurt. The store has given cake samples to some content creators, which may have pushed the popularity of dot cake over the edge. Are they worth the hype? Everyone online just said it tastes like Betty Crocker, the influencer Lucy Rochenbell said in a recent video where she recreated a version at home. "There's a little bit of an eye-roll element to the fact that this cake went viral," said Carmel Hagen, the founder of the baking ingredient company Supernatural. "But it may be traveling widely because it's not tricky to DIY. You don't find that many people making their own gronut," said Hagen. The most polarizing aspect of the dot cake may be the type of sprinkle that has catapulted to fame alongside it. It's not the soft sprinkle, or Jimmy, that has graced many an ice cream cone or funfetti cake. It's the nonpareil, the hard, round bauble that was previously a wallflower of the baking aisle. Rainbow soft sprinkles from Supernatural are typically Amazon's bestseller in the dessert sprinkles category. But for 5 days in May, Hagen said, the brand's nonpareils took that spot. Before dot cakes became a social media phenomenon, Hagen said, they rarely broke the top 20. Nonpareils are an inferior sprinkle, said Molly Yeh, a cookbook author and TV host who uses sprinkles in many of her recipes. They're just kind of overly crunchy and don't have that much flavor. She prefers the softer, chewy kind. Of course, a frosted cake with sprinkles is not so novel. Online commenters have pointed out the similarities between dot cakes and a Mexican cortadillo, a simple cake with pink frosting and nonpareil sprinkles. For years, the dot cakes have been mainstays of celebrations of college acceptance. Posner sells around 3,000 dot cups a week, plus 50 to 70 custom orders each day, including some painstaking designs, and has at least 100 different colors of sprinkles to choose from. When she started dot cakes in 2017 as a high school student working out of her parents' home, the point wasn't the cake, it was the decoration, she said, citing pointillism and its tomatic artist, George Seurat, as inspiration. And now the point is the cake. Modern love. I couldn't tell him why we had to break up. When my young cousin's girlfriend cheated on him, I wrestled with ghosts of my own. By Rachel Stone. In February, my phone was ablaze with the latest revelation in my cousin's breakup. We had been rallying around the 28-year-old in recent weeks after his girlfriend of 2 years dumped him without warning or explanation, leaving him shattered and in shock. He was railing against the new reality, struggling to accept that the woman he believed he would spend forever with was truly gone, and that he might never know why. And then a screenshot, taken by a friend before the breakup, found its way to him, establishing that she had been cheating. The makeshift support wagon veered from confused to affronted, as our text threads flooded with reassurances about him having dodged a bullet, along with the requisite assassination of her character. Everyone batted around the same questions he was now desperate to answer. How could she let it get that far? If she was that unhappy, why not end it sooner? Why couldn't she have just been honest? I scrolled in silence, thumbs hovering, then retreating, my stomach recoiling with every sling of mud, because the questions being floated were fair and all too familiar. Because I thought I already knew every answer this young man sought from his supposedly cold-hearted ex. Because 26 years earlier, I was her. I had been in love for more than 2 years with a young man who was, in every regard, one to bring home to Mom. He and I were both younger than my cousin, not yet 20, but already all the things my cousin and his girlfriend had been. Mutually respectful, universally compatible, Disney Channel adorable. Everyone saw us going the distance. Until I cheated. Not in the seedy, lust-fueled way that so often springs to mind, but more of a slow-brewing attraction that I tried to deny for months until, in the end, I no longer could. But I didn't have the words or the courage to tell my boyfriend any of that. I didn't want to hurt anyone, least of all him. So instead, I blurted out a weak statement of facts. I can't do this. You didn't do anything wrong. There's nothing more to discuss. Blindsided, my boyfriend broke into shards. Like my cousin, he begged for a compelling reason, a negotiation, a bulleted list of what he could fix. From there, he straight up refused to accept my resignation, insisting school and a recent health scare had left me too stressed, that I wasn't currently capable of making clear decisions, and questioned whether I might be having some sort of a breakdown. I kept shaking my head, wondering, what was I supposed to tell him? The truth? That without searching I had found someone, and now everything I thought I understood about love and how right was supposed to feel turned out to be totally indisputably wrong. What would that have accomplished besides compounding the pain? I'll never know. Breaking up was the right decision, and I accepted that the price of making it was to forever brand myself the villain in this story. Not only my ex's version, but my own. The guilt and shame of falling in love with one man while still being loved by another, of hurting a good person and then lying about why, letting everyone, including myself, down in the process, never fully left me. In the weeks that followed the breakup, I felt unburdened to an unnerving degree, awash in a hyper-oxygenated sensation of being free, but didn't believe I deserved it. I couldn't help second-guessing the new happiness I was forging. How much longer before I lived to regret it? When would karma collect its due? I felt like an imposter, walking around like some morally decent person instead of the lying cheater within who wanted too much and refused to fight her own feelings hard enough. Years later, I went on to marry that other man, the one who had changed everything. Our love has proved unstoppable for 26 years, yet a cobwebbed corner inside me has feared myself of being flawed all along, somehow incapable, whether from my DNA, my disposition, my parents' divorce, of being satisfied with a perfectly good thing. Time and again I have wondered, is it only a matter of time before my faulty wiring sets this beautiful life on fire? Once a cheater, always a cheater. Watching my cousin sift through the ruins, I couldn't help but examine my own past anew. I flashed back to all the gushing discussions during which my ex, along with our friends, took our happily ever after as inevitable. And for the first time, I noticed the one person steeped in silence throughout: me. I flipped through our last full year together, out of a total of less than 3, where we bickered more than we laughed, our smiles no longer reaching our eyes, both of us waiting on things to magically get good again. I recalled all the times I did try to voice my doubts, suggesting repeatedly, albeit too softly, that maybe we had a problem, at which point another dozen roses would arrive, along with finger-wagging reminders that love can't always be rainbows, and real relationships take work. Remembering 19-year-old me, I saw no traces of a scheming witch, just a scared kid navigating one of life's hardest conversations without a script, in a world that kept insisting she was lucky, that nobody strikes gold twice, that good girls don't dare ask for more when they've already been handed plenty. I saw a gun-shy girl, an overabundance of caution, a brittle conscience that didn't break sooner because some lines don't appear until after you've crossed them. A person who, in waiting to be absolutely sure before causing irreparable harm, wasn't being malicious. And anyway, when is the right moment to crush a perfectly good heart? What box on the calendar is best for bulldozing a dream, leveling a good person who has shown you nothing but kindness? Falling out of love wasn't premeditated. I didn't know how much I didn't know about what love could and should hold until it started seeping through the cracks I had spent months pretending not to see, and had been told weren't there. For better or worse, I didn't tell my ex-boyfriend there was already someone else when we broke up, because my decision was made regardless, and leaving that part out was the best way I could think of to limit the damage. I spent most of my adult life believing one bad thing had made me, in part, a bad person. I anchored myself to a single loathed fact, that I had hurt someone, while never acknowledging the courage it took at that age, or any age, to reach with no guarantee for something bigger than a series of checks down a list and the absence of mistreatment. To have an unbearable conversation too late instead of never, but nonetheless before a ring, a candlelit reception, 2 mortgages, or a custody hearing. Walking away when my attempts to speak went unheard, refusing to stay in a version of myself that no longer existed for the sole purpose of making another person happy, I understand now that these are not things bad, broken people do. If it should ever come to it, they are what I would want my daughter to do. All these years later, by the light of the phone in my lap, I forgave myself. Grown-up me, though far from proud, finally made peace with what I had done. Nonetheless, I hated that my cousin was hurting. A few days later, I sat across from him at my dining room table, poured him a cup of tea, and tried to explain as best I could what I believed his ex-girlfriend might someday wish she could say to the man whose heart she broke. Hurting him was the hardest thing she had ever had to do. She held off as long as she could. While she may have done an awful thing, I told him, he wasn't in love with an awful person. Being blindsided is agonizing, but she was seeing clearly enough for them both. In time, he will be fine. Then, so much better. Because for as long as you're still asking the questions, is this right? Am I happy? Are we good? The answer is probably no. When it's yes, you don't find yourself asking at all. She never wanted to be the villain in his story. She only needed to be the heroine in her own. You've been listening to a reading of articles and features from the June 7th issue of the New York Times Style section. Your reader has been Laura. Thank you for listening.
Coming up next in the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service, we have the USA Today. At 2 o'clock, we have episode number 13 of 1929 by Andrew Ross Sorkin. Stay with us for these readings and more. You're listening to the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service, broadcasting daily readings 24 hours a day of newspapers, magazines, and books to area people who are blind or have a print disability, who are provided reading radios. Radio Readings broadcast signal is provided at no charge by WNED. Radio Reading Studios are at 1199 Harlem Road in Cheektowaga, between William and Clinton Streets. Radio Reading's website is nfradioreading.org. For more information on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service, call us at 716-821-5555.
The Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service now presents a reading of